Please welcome Professor Frolova-Walker.
Good evening, dear friends, and it's wonderful to be back. Let's have a look at this image. It's not a particularly serious one. As you can see, there is this awkward shape of the upright piano in contrast with a very lovely, graceful shape of a woman playing it. She is not even touching it, but we can sort of guess that she is going to do something very dainty from the shape of her fingers. She seems to be levitating rather than sitting on anything. We can't see any evidence of the piano stool. And she seems to be a bit flirty because she seems to be looking at us. So she's playing for us rather than to herself. So just a few lines, and you can get a lot out of this image. So what I'm going to do today is to give you a whistle-stop tour through 4 centuries of painting, focused on this idea of a woman at the piano. Or, of course, before the piano is invented, there are other instruments, domestic instruments such as clavichord or harpsichord, which are its predecessors. So there are 3 things that I will try to do in this lecture. So the first one will be to ask a question, how these images reflect the social history of women musicians. Because in my own research for many years I've been writing musicological research on history of Russian music and hardly ever mentioned women. So this is my chance to introduce at least some of the women. So that's why I'm interested in, particularly in pianists. And the second thing would be to look at the iconography of these paintings and also of how the instruments are represented. And the third thing that I will try to do is to add the musical component, to let you listen some of the music that these women are playing. So let's go. And the first chapter is out of Italy. We start with the Italian Renaissance. Where else? But of course, the further from us these paintings are, the more difficult it is to interpret them, to read them properly. So this painting, for example, has been read as a family scene. It's Bernardino Licinio. The title that's been given to it is A Concert. As you know, the titles are very fluid. They're not sort of written down anywhere. But there is also this alternative title, which you might find, A Courtesan at the Clavichord with a Suitor and a Procuress. So the problem is that the little money bag, the little sack of coins, we cannot actually see it anymore because the painting is so old. So the man here is sort of clinking the coins in front of this beautiful woman who is entertaining clients by playing this instrument. The instrument is a clavichord. It's very small. As you can see, it's a little box, which is just a tabletop instrument. But you can see what this painting does. Everything is in quite sort of broad brushed strokes, but the clavichord has a lot of detail in it. Almost can reconstruct it from it. So this is just to show that there is another painting with a similar dress and possibly even a similar woman, and to let you hear the sounds that this beautiful woman might have got out of this instrument. So, well, here's another image. And here, this gives us a chance to see some work by the artists who are themselves women. And they're, sorry, this is not yet the chance. We will see that in a moment. This is a painter who's Flemish, but studied in Italy, Jan van Hemessen. A young woman playing a clavichord. So similar instrument. Again, very detailed presentation of it. But here she's clearly an aristocratic lady, possibly Margaret of Parma. If she is Margaret of Parma, she will be about 10 years old here. I'm not sure whether that is true. You can see some domestic objects, some kind of vases and bottles with liquid, which tells us that's a domestic situation. You can see the Italian art is now going to the Flemish lands, yeah, and we are sort of spreading throughout Europe. So you can see that the detail of this clavichord is so well presented that people actually managed to build one, yeah, based on that painting, although the instrument itself, of course, has not survived. So this is the daughter now of Jan van Hemessen, Catharina van Hemessen, and she's a painter, so you can see her with the easel. This is the first ever portrayal of a woman, or self-portrait of a woman, in the process of painting. And this is supposed to be her sister. Yeah, and you see she's also playing this lovely little clavichord. This pattern is a standard Renaissance pattern, which is called the dolphin pattern. And you can see that in this case, yeah, these women are basically presenting themselves, advertising themselves as very accomplished, yeah, and very confident. So they are no more, yeah, courtesans who are playing for somebody else. They're presenting their serious art. And this is the dilemma that we always have with these paintings. There's very often music has a connection with an erotic charge, yeah, because we are actually voyeurs, yeah, we're looking at them. And there's potential moral danger, yeah, but also there are also already in the 16th century you see women kind of establishing themselves and advertising themselves as these accomplished persons. Another wonderful painter, Sophonisba by Anguissola, two self-portraits with an instrument. Yeah, so she is an amazing painter. If you don't know her painters, you have to look them up and look at her confident gaze at you, right at you. Yeah, so she presents herself. Everyone knows that she is a painter, obviously, but she is also a clavichordist. Yeah, she's also a musician. Another one, Lavinia Fontana, basically takes follows in the footsteps of Sophonisba. Yeah, she also wants to advertise herself, and this is a kind of advertisement of her craft. Also, apparently, this painting happened to be her dowry, yeah, when she got married. So she became a very accomplished and very successful portrait painter, yeah, commercially successful portrait painter. So this is an interesting case, yeah. So here's another daughter of a painter, daughter of Tintoretto, sometimes called La Tintoretta, Marietta Rabusti, yeah, and she. So people assume that it was her self-portrait, but there is a problem with this depiction. On the one hand, we see a madrigal. The madrigal is printed or painted so well that you can actually identify it. We can even hear it. On the other hand, if you know how the keyboard is structured, you can see the problem here. Yeah, usually you have 3 black notes, 2 black notes, 3 black notes, 2 black notes. Oh, here's the 1 black note. Yeah, so the keyboard is incorrect. So basically, people who attributed it to Robusti may not have been right, because she herself was also a keyboard player, a musician, so she wouldn't have made that mistake, right? So on the basis of that, they now think that this attribution is actually wrong. But I'm wondering whether someone who could reproduce so exactly the musical notation could make such an obvious mistake. So perhaps there is a mystery there, yeah, that we cannot yet uncover. just wanted to show you another Italian painting, and you can see this is a different iconographic convention now. Yeah, so that she's not playing, but she's just touching, with one finger the clavichord. And you will see that that convention of a portrait with an instrument will actually persist throughout the centuries. So another sort of whole section of paintings have to do with Cecilia. Yeah, so you probably know her as a patron saint of music. She wasn't originally patron saint of music, but around 1600 they decided she was a patron saint of sacred music. So usually she's portrayed with an organ, right? But sometimes with a keyboard as well. So you can see this is a very different type of presentation, because the woman here is listening to divine music, has this divine inspiration. She is sometimes in a trance. She barely touches the keyboard, and her eyes are either closed, or she looks somewhere into distance. So you can see there are actually similar paintings of her. So here she's almost levitating and barely touching the keyboard. Gradually, these San Cecilias are beginning to be secularized. And actually somebody can do a self-portrait of themselves as Santa Cecilia, and she then looks more at you, or even becoming a little bit flirty, perhaps. So it's slightly strange. But that iconographic convention of a woman playing, being in a trance, returns to us in the 19th century, with the Romantic art. And we can see a couple of paintings like this, which might remind you of San Cecilia, but which are not. So the next cluster comes from 17th century Dutch genre paintings. So women at the piano, it could be a portrait, it could be a genre scene. And of course, when we are in the Dutch Republic, it's a very prosperous society. The middle classes are also becoming prosperous. There's an art market. Everyone buys paintings. Everyone buys instruments. The instruments are becoming sort of differently shaped. They're much bigger. We call them virginals. But actually, it's basically a harpsichord, just differently shaped. They become extremely ornamented. And usually in Dutch painting, there's always a social scene of music making. So even when we see a woman on her own, she's waiting for someone. So here you can see probably a family scene, and the man is coming with another instrument. You can see the intricacy, again, the intricacy of the presentation of this beautiful instrument. Something that might be familiar to you. You can see she's alone, but there's a bass viol there, which means that the male is going to come in, a male musician, and they're going to play a duet. Similar stuff happens in Vermeer. You can see that he has actually inherited that whole presentation. So let's hear how the music sounded. Let's hear very similar instrument. Yes, it's much louder now. It's not as quiet, and it's much more pleasant. The strings are plucked, and they're much more resonant. So here again, it's very hard to say whether these women are virtuous, or that there's a hint of vice. So here, for example, there is a motto, a Latin motto, which I translated for you here. In thee, O Lord, do I put my trust, never let me put to confusion. Well, she's being put to confusion right now, as potentially, a young man, or potentially even her music teacher, is offering her a glass of wine. So this is not going to and well. And so she really needs to look at this motto more often. Or this one, this is a music lesson, and you can see that this lady, who is actually quite awkward, it's funny how her hands are presented in a very awkward position. So she obviously doesn't have a clue. But the key is hanging on the wall. And there is also an amorous painting on the wall, which suggests that there might be something amorous going on between the teacher and the student. We don't approve of that. Just wanted to show you that Dutch painters also discovered this new aspect, to actually point of view, to look at the back of the woman. And you will see how that will play out much later. So now we are going into the 18th century in mainly France and other European courts, and mainly looking at grand formal portraits. For example, at the court of Frederick the Great, they had a very elaborate harpsichord, which is being described here. The hinges, pedals, and frame are of silver, the case is inlaid, and the front is of tortoiseshell. This is a Prussian court painter painting the Prussian court composer and his wife. Yes, and you can see that she's playing this lovely double manual harpsichord, which allows you to have more colors and timbres. This is a celebrity. Some of these portraits are of musical celebrities. So this is a famous actress in the genre of opera comique. She's married to a playwright, and actually Offenbach even wrote much later an operetta about them. It's called Madame Favart. So she's called Madame Favart. And you can see that it's a very complicated music, and her hands on two manuals. So this is basically a similar machine that you're going to hear. Some really famous people, such as Madame de Pompadour, who was very close to Louis XV, as we know, and also was a great patroness of the arts. So all this stuff that you can see on the floor represents her patronage of the arts. And she's also touching a very elaborate harpsichord in the Rococo style. This amazing painting of a singer with a hugely elaborate hairdo and very elaborate harpsichord and very elaborate old manuscript, musical manuscript at the back of her, which suggests to us that she is not just frivolous in her dress, but she is also kind of an intellectual who can read that notation. The story of Thérèse Lanty, we know about her from Casanova's memoirs, and apparently she spent many years pretending to be a castrato, a male singer, a castrato. And Casanova at least claims that it was he who found out who she really was. But and Marie Antoinette, so the Queen of France, who ended very badly. Here you see her at the harpsichord when she was just before she married the king, Louis XVI. There were all these pamphlets. She was hated so much. All aspects of her were hated, including her harpsichord playing. So she is described here as a student of the late Sacchini and protector of any ultramontane composer, so any composer from behind the Alps. And has the firm belief that she's a good musician because she mangles a few sonatas on her harpsichord and she sings out of tune in the concerts that she gives in secret, where she takes care to admit only vile adulterers. So everything is bad. And again, the moral dangers here. Here, I just wanted to see this lovely painting by Joshua Reynolds, And you see that the dress is basically the same dress as Marie Antoinette was wearing. Yeah, and here you have everyone basically trying to follow this royal fashion. Talking about fashion, yeah, in this period we find that fashions are beginning to change, and also the harpsichord is changing to forte piano or piano forte. And this happens, the piano was basically invented at the beginning of the 18th century, but took about a century for it to become a really dominant instrument. And it really happens during the French Revolution, during those 10 years. There is a register of all the instruments that were expropriated during the revolution from various upper-class houses. And there's roughly the same number of harpsichords and pianos. You can see that fashions will also change very quickly, from this something very elaborate to something much more simple. But first I wanted to let you hear an instrument which is very much like the ones that's presented here. So that's an early piano, it's Mozart's piano. You can see that during the revolution, the dress changes. Suddenly you have this sort of white cotton shirt appearing. This is another celebrity, a wonderful opera singer who was very famous for her roles in tragédie lyrique. Yeah, so she sang arias like this. Beautiful painting. A beautiful instrument which is matching her chair as well. Yeah, this kind of Etruscan style furniture. And then just a few years later, one of the painters is going to exile from revolutionary France, goes to Russia, and portrays one of the Russian aristocrats as much simpler dress. He has kind of Greek-style dress. Everything has changed now after the revolution, and we will have a lot of these white dresses, yeah, so with very high waist. They go on for about a quarter of a century. A singer, possibly an amateur, and the first American painting. Yeah, so here the piano comes to America. This is a much more, as you can see, sort of, don't want to say primitive, yeah, but it's much more sort of painstaking portrayal of the keyboard. Yeah, every key sort of is shown to us, and you can see also the title of the song that she's going to play. It's an English air, yeah, which is called the Silver Moon. During the revolution, there was a particular sort of emphasis on women now entering the labor force, especially women who used to just play for pleasure, yeah, be amateurs. Some of them lost their fortune and had to go into teaching, yeah, so had to actually enter the labor force as pianists or piano teachers. And this is the first female pianist that became an international star. This is Maria Szymanowska. You can see she's wearing a similar dress, but there's something very different about her. If you look at her hands, yeah, her hands are not dainty at all. Yeah, they're working virtuoso's hands. They're huge. And we can hear the music that she composed, which is very much kind of pre-Chopin style, played on the instrument like this. looking at these paintings year by year from about 1926, you can actually date the painting by the fashion magazines. Yeah, so this is from 1926, and I found a very, very similar dress, very similar type of sleeve, yeah, in a fashion magazine from 1826. Now, in the next section, we are going to talk about the 19th century, and maybe this is the point to reiterate the question that I've been asked lots of times. So why women at the piano? Where are the men at the piano? Is there a genre of painting like that? And if you look them up, you will find some men playing the piano, but they will usually be somebody like Beethoven or Schubert or Liszt. Yeah, so there will be somebody that you would know anyway. There wouldn't be just any amateurs. And the reason for that is that basically, mostly in the house, the piano was played by women. It was a women's instrument. It was supposed to present them in the most graceful way. They were much less likely to be playing the violin. Almost completely unlikely that they would learn a wind instrument, yeah, because that would distort their facial features and not actually be decent. Throughout the 19th century, you have the piano now being in every home, not just upper-class homes and middle-class homes. It takes center stage. It's like a second hearth. It's described as a second hearth, a replacement for the hearth. It's a center of social life, of entertainment and courtship. And Virginia Woolf in Orlando presented us with a very nice, penetrating introduction, yeah, to the bourgeois 19th century home. Yeah, the chill which he felt in his legs, the country gentleman soon transferred to his house. Furniture was muffled, walls and tables were covered, nothing was left bare. Then a change of diet became essential. The muffin was invented and the crumpet. Coffee supplanted the after-dinner port, and as coffee led to a drawing room in which to drink it, and a drawing room to glass cases, and glass cases to artificial flowers, and artificial flowers to mantelpiece, and the mantelpieces to pianofortes, and pianofortes to drawing room ballads, and drawing room ballads, skipping a stage or two, to innumerable little dogs, mats, and china ornaments. The home, which had become extremely important, was completely altered. Yes, it's a lovely quote which describes a lot of paintings that we are going to see, cluttered interiors with the piano at the center of it. And now almost every woman has to learn the piano, irrespective of whether she has talent or an inclination for that. And you have a lot of these drawings. Some of them are satirical, some of them are not. They appear in magazines, yeah, in journals. And you have a lot of these images, and you can see the vase of flowers starts to appear. And notice how we will see it many, many times. Well, this is a satirical one, yeah, which is sort of presents forte piano in this sort of contrasting shapes of the two players. Another vase of flowers, this is the first Russian painting that I found. Again, you can see the very familiar to us pictorial convention of just touching the piano lightly with one finger. In fact, the woman was an extremely important concert pianist and the wife of the artist. You can see, yeah, that perhaps Brylov, who also studied in Italy, may have seen even that particular painting or something similar. Yeah, this is how the pose and even the dress carry across the centuries. So this is this bourgeois home with the piano at the center. Now let us have a look at a very important moment that happens in the portrayals of women at the piano now in the 19th century. So you can see this rather lovely painting by Joseph Danhauser, where the woman is portrayed again from the back or from the side a little bit, but you can't see her face. And you can see that she's left her gloves on the top of the piano, so she must have just walked in. There are flowers. She seems to be in a hurry. Yeah, she wants to catch a moment. And she seems to be left alone to her own devices. You know, on the one hand, some of these presentations from the back can still be sort of voyeuristic, yeah, and maybe having an erotic charge. I'll show you a couple in a moment. But compare, this Joseph Danhauser, you might not have heard of him. He's the one who made the Beethoven's mask, yeah, after his death. And he also made this painting, which is a painting of Liszt. And this is, for contrast, yeah, man on the piano. Completely different situation. Yes, it's basically like an allegory of greatness and monumentality and the sublime. Yeah, because Liszt is performing. There's Giorgio Sand here, Marina Gogh. There's Rossini, who is hugging Paganini, right? All these, Victor Hugo, all these people, yeah, and Liszt is now like Saint Cecilia looking at Beethoven and sort of presenting them with a sublime version of his music. Very different, yeah, from this very modest portrayal of the woman, but I think it's a very important moment. This painting, for example, by François Bonvin, by the way, both Danhauser and Bonvin studied Dutch art. Yeah, the Dutch art comes into currency again through various educational prints, and these painters that you will see were really influenced by them, and that's why there's a direct connection. So this is a sketch which was found in the possession of Georges Sand's daughter, Aurore, yeah, and it might be presenting her and might be presenting her mother, and perhaps from the date we know that Georges Sand was connected with Chopin. By that time, yeah, they're already separated, and he was very ill. Yeah, he only had less than a year to live, but perhaps it's a piece of Chopin that is being played, and you can see that the muted colors. This very quiet, so harmonious palette of this sketch, I think, tell us that the woman is left alone. Yeah, she's not being fancied. She's not being desired. Well, there are kind of, again, that's another Dutch prototype when there is much more erotic charge. Yeah, there's this shiny fabric, for example, which stood for woman's skin. And you can see that sometimes these presentations from the back are very appealing, yeah, and that's quite different. But I'm more interested in that moment. That's another François Bonvin, and that's a very Dutch style. Yeah, it almost looks like an engraving. In fact, it's a chalk drawing. These quiet paintings, yeah, which allow women be. And Frédéric Bazille, who also takes up that idea, he actually submits this to an exhibition at the Salon at the Academy of Arts, and it's rejected. And he feels that there is something new that he wants to say with this painting, that it's actually a novel thing that happens now with this figure. And it's a kind of anti-academicist drive. You have to represent something that is around you, something that is humble, something that is everyday, rather than grand mythological and historical scenes. Yeah, and again, the palette is very quiet here. I can show you for comparison. This is a woman painter, Louise Abbemans. She also wants to sort of blend into the background. Yeah, the dress is the same color as the piano, but the vase of flowers is there. So, a daydream. You can see how this convention of touching the piano is now different, because the woman is not looking at us. Yeah, she's actually lost in a reverie. She looks at the book. Another female painter. This is a kind of a double double hidden moment, yeah, because the lady here is at the piano, but it's actually, she pretends to be maybe reading the score, it's actually reading a book, yeah, so it's a double hiding away from the gaze. The vase of flowers is still there. Now, this is introduces us to a lot of French painters, which finally realized that this was a new genre, femme au piano, yeah, and they all started producing these paintings. There are dozens of them. And some of these painters you will know very well, and they all knew each other, and they all seem to be competing with each other and taking this as a kind of token, as a kind of type. They start trying various things, moving painting forward and looking for various new progressive ways of dealing with the subject. And sometimes these paintings are not based on models. They paint their wives, their sisters, their children, and they gift these paintings to each other. So the story of this painting of his wife by Edouard Manet is quite strange, quite bizarre. Because basically it starts with this. Edgar Degas created this painting with Madame Manet at the piano and Manet listening to her. Brought it as a gift to Manet, and Manet slashed his wife out of the painting. I don't know if something really disturbed him in his presentation. And then, yeah, he did this thing himself as if to compensate. And you can see it's also a very quiet and loving and affectionate, but not overtly erotic portrayal of his wife. Degas, though, also decided to do his own, and this is much more flashy painting. This is a wife of the doctor that they had in common with Manet, so Madame Camus. He was very proud of the music that he made almost legible. He claims it's Beethoven. I spent a long time and was asking everyone which piece it might be. It might be one of the variations, but it doesn't exactly match. Yeah? So again, it's not completely legible, but it's kind of pseudo-Dutch again. So further and further along, there are these fantastic new discoveries. This is one of my favorite paintings by Paul Cézanne, who basically introduces us to modernism in 1869. Yeah, this is suddenly all these patterns of wallpaper and fabrics just explode. And all that happened within, again, another kind of pseudo-Dutch arrangement. It's called Overture to Tannhäuser. The piano itself seems to have given birth to the whole structure and the color palette of this painting. Yeah, because it's contrasting very strongly with the white dress. Yeah, the stripes sort of come from the keyboard that we cannot see. Yeah, and this sort of brown and white basically rhyme across the whole canvas. This is like the mainstream, and there are absolute dozens of them. Yeah, I have huge collections. This is a sort of much more light-hearted, but very elaborate bourgeois home with these animal skins and the vase of flowers and the parrot, yeah, which is, I assume, repeating the melody. Yeah. So now to the picture that you know very well, to Renoir, and you can see that it's kind of fantasy on femininity. Yeah, it's so soft that the piano itself also submits to this softness. Yeah, the piano shape also becomes kind of bluish. This blue gauze kind of possesses it. But when it was exhibited, the painter Kai Bott, who was also a patron of some of these people, including Renoir, decided to present something opposite to this? What would be opposite to this? Oh, there's a man at the piano, finally, an unknown man on the piano. And you can see that it's kind of opposite in every direction, apart from maybe similar point of view, very strange point of view. And you can see that he plays with the structure and the perspective here, and also with the fact that the grand piano is a reflective, shiny object. And you can see that the keyboard is doubled up and the hands are doubled up as well. And, you know, the ideas that Caillebotte was actually homosexual has been certainly discussed. So potentially, you know, this is a kind of, I don't know, an in-joke between them. And this is an amazing painting by Edvard Munch, which is basically just takes us towards abstraction, almost, with these very deep colors. And on the contrary, Pierre Barnard brings it more to these popular prints, popular magazines. It's very decorative. Again, you have the flowers, but it's much more sort of populist, so to speak. This is another mysterious painting because it was a gift to Claude Monet from Caillebotte, and the woman whose face we cannot see, not the teacher in the hat, but the student without the hat, is possibly romantically connected with Monet because this painting was found in his bedroom, but we don't know who she is. And finally, you have a series of 6 girls at the piano by Renoir. And this is finally the image that in 1892 was bought by the French state, and it became a kind of iconic representation of France, of grace and innocence, and perhaps the high point of this genre, femme or piano. Just a few more things that I wanted to show in terms of form, how these vases are now populate the painting, and they all rhyme with the woman's body. So the body is also like a vase, if you can look at it closely. These are another kind of rhyming objects, and this whole bourgeois home is becoming kind of arranged around the piano. The idea that and this is you take it all away, you have a wonderful sort of empty interior. The idea that the piano is actually structuring the painting comes from this Whistler picture, which became very popular and very influential. And he himself started talking at that time about painting becoming music. So music at that point really becomes very important for them as something that they actually aspire to make their art musical, to make it less narrative, to make it all about the rhymes and colors and structures. Obviously, light, the fact that the pianist needs light gives us also, the painters, some ideas of how to combine daylight and artificial light, or how to portray a face through the music stand. Another version of this vase of flowers is about to fall off. Another wonderful fantasy on light. Now, the erotic charge doesn't go anywhere, and I wanted to present you with some most outrageous version of this. So, of course, people could not resist portraying semi-nude or nude women at the piano. And some kind of genre moments. Of course, very famously, the Kreutzer Sonata, if you know this Tolstoy novella, in which the music basically leads to an affair, or potentially an affair between someone's wife and the violinist. Well, again, why not? Why not? And this is the most outrageous, not because she's nude, but because she has her legs on the piano. and very bizarre, kind of quasi-historical. You can see the painted harpsichord here appearing. Yeah, some kind of very strange dynamic between these two characters. Now, very quickly, let's talk about the music. This painting is called the Sonata, and even without knowing anything more about it, we can guess that it's probably Beethoven's sonata, and it's probably appassionata, you know, that would bring the woman to this state. Indeed, Beethoven is a very important figure. And whenever women play Beethoven, it seems to them that this is a path to the sublime. You know, in the sort of classical aesthetics, women were denied access to the sublime. Yeah, they were always in the realm of the beautiful. Yeah, the sublime was for the males. So if a woman plays Beethoven, somehow it gives her something that she otherwise cannot have. So this is potentially historical painting, but possibly a kind of fantasy, yeah, on Beethoven's ghost appearing there. Well, this one is called Sonata number 14, which is, of course, the Moonlight Sonata. And you can see the moonlight on her dress. But mostly, of course, you will see popular music. This is a very rare painting in which people are actually enjoying themselves fully. So it's a popular Polish song, which we can actually hear. The vase of flowers was there as well, as you noticed. Yeah, sometimes, of course, operatic arias from Italian operas. Furtive tear, yeah, as the saying went, playing the piano, yeah, for a woman was like having a good cry upstairs, right? So again, yeah, it's slightly condescending way of putting it, yeah, but it really creates this private space. And this is an improvisation, yeah, she's playing without music. Here you can see the Carmen, and perhaps the fact that she's wearing black, although she might be a widow, yeah, but maybe there is something about femme fatale coming through, yeah, through these melodies from Carmen. Coming back to this, yeah, Overture to Tannhäuser. The Overture to Tannhäuser begins very low, and you can see that's where her hands are. So we can bring that up a little bit. They were very much into Wagner at that point, yeah, and all French painters, they were interconnected with a network of musicians, and all of them were Wagnerians. If you know the Overture to Tannhäuser, it has a wild bit which follows after that. Yeah, so we can imagine if she actually really goes on to that, yeah, that other woman is going to get a shock. But we don't really think, yeah, that she is going to go on. It's probably just that Pilgrim's chorus that she is going to play. Sometimes painters actually portray the music. Yeah, so she might be playing a polonaise, yeah, and remembering her youth and the balls that she participated in. Or this is a very recent painting, as you can see, and it's a father painter portraying his famous pianist. I think she's called Simone Dinnerstein. And all the things that were important in her musical education, and he calls it about strange lands and people, which is the title of a Schumann piece. Yeah. So very, very quickly, I'll just take you to the moment when these conventions are deconstructed, subverted, destroyed. Yeah, this is called Lady at the Piano. Please find the lady. I can find maybe bits of the piano, but the lady is much harder to find. This one is a bit more visible, yeah, but also a cubist version. This is a fantastic explosion by Nadezhda Udaltsova from the similar time. Some more. This is, I love this. This is Renoir Magritte, because Renoir Magritte really kind of, you can see the bare bones of that genre. Yeah, so you see the keyboard, you see her hands, you see her hairdo, and you see the vase of flowers. I find this very touching. Yeah, that finally, yeah, we know what the formula is. And this is a sad one. This is San Cecilia, but now, yeah, destruction and loss prevail. Makes me think of our sort of situation with music today, but still, there's more possible, fantastic kind of mixture of Woman at the Piano with the still life, yeah, by Matisse. Or, again, a kind of analytical painting when the keyboard explodes, yeah, and everything becomes a kind of a keyboard and strings. So in the little epilogue, I would like to point out that we haven't seen any concert pianists, yeah, female concert pianists. There were masses of them by that stage, but they were not portrayed. These are the few exceptions. So, of course, very different iconographic convention. You have to do an audience. Yeah, it's a very different thing, very difficult to do. And very few women are really portrayed that way. This is Wanda Landowska, and this is Maria Yudina. Yeah, so... we cannot really blame painters for avoiding this, because this is not the point. Yeah, the genre that I was trying to present to us, it's really about amateur female music making in the home, where the predominant number, absolute majority of players were women. And the moment this genre basically stops existing, or at least seriously stops existing, which is the beginning of the 19th century, is precisely the moment when women find other better things to do. Yeah, they come out to the workplace or into the public life, and they're replaced in the home by the gramophone. That's the end of my story. Thank you. Thank you.